to to, to kind of build a culture around that, because building a culture is probably one of the most overlooked but most important things to do when you're starting a company, and planning for that, even if you don't have employees currently. But if you're, if you're getting ready to, when you're thinking about scaling, then you definitely want to think about what that culture is going to be. How do you want to plan it? How do you want to build it? Because it's setting that stage is probably the most important thing you'll do for your organization. So again, welcome. This is Human Resources for Small Businesses. My name is Monica Freeman Green. I am currently serve a lot of different roles. So it's like someone said, I'm not necessarily a serial entrepreneur, but I'm a serial working with entrepreneurs, if that makes sense. So most of my recent experience has been with small business owners. So I currently serve as the Director of HR Organizational Strategy for both the Anchor Spa restaurant and their sister restaurant in Harlem, New York, called 67 Orange Street. Hopefully many of you have been to the Anchor Spa or will come join. Just a quick, the Anchor Spa is a restaurant and cocktail bar. They do not provide hair services or manicures or pedicures or massages. The name comes from its original name in 1939, which stood for a place that, a bar where you could day drink. They were called spas. So that's where that came from. 67 Orange Street is the first cocktail bar in Harlem. Started in Harlem. It's almost 14 years old now. It's one of the oldest Black-owned bars in all of New York City, longest lasting Black-owned bars in New York City. And then the most recent role is, so Carl Williams, who owns Anchor Spa on 67 Orange Street, recently started a beverage company called Uncle Wakely's Beverage Company. Our first product out the market is a ginger beer with a Scotch bonnet bite. So me and Kwame will have a lot in common. And I am a partner in that business, and my title is VP of People and Operations. So a little bit about myself. There's me. I started in corporate. I've worked about 12 years in a corporate environment as, mostly as an HR director, or some people call it an HR business partner. There's been several names to what that role meant. But basically it's partnering with client groups in a business and helping them build, their performance management strategy, their organizational and staffing strategy, and just, how to take human capital and make it something that's an actual asset to the company, and how do you utilize that in your organization to the best ability that you can. I worked in very large global companies with tens of thousands of employees. Learned a lot about processes and project management and how to, execute different programs. Wouldn't say that I had a deep connection with a lot of employees because of how many they were. So that was one thing that I was missing. And just, the corporate world is, as many of you know, I'm sure if you've worked in corporate and then turned into an entrepreneur, there's something about it that's lacking your own personal stamp. So, when I got the opportunity to start HR consulting with Carl, it was very attractive to me because, I felt like I could take all my learnings, all my professional experience, and apply it to something that actually meant something to me, and make a really direct impact. And so I started doing that in 2015. The focus of my HR consulting did stay with restaurants for the most part. As many of you know, so I'm Harlem based, and as many of you may be aware, Harlem is a city of a neighborhood of restaurants, so and bars, and a lot of friends of mine who own businesses, that was the business they're in. So I kind of fell into that and became this like HR guru around town. So, and I worked I worked for drinks and food. I was a big fan of the barter system, but it really allowed me to to get my feet wet into what the different challenges an entrepreneur faces versus a large scale corporate organization. I also worked for a couple of people who owned wellness companies like yoga and things, yoga studios and things of that nature. What I've been able to do for a lot of those businesses was, streamline several processes for them, kind of give them, a corporate, just kind of like not environment. So they didn't turn corporate. They were still small business entrepreneurs, but they had these sophisticated systems and processes that many of them found very useful. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about that a lot, but it really helps you run the business better if you can put these things in place. So just like onboarding, things like payroll processes, things, performance management processes, things like that, and anything operational had really helped. And then, as I mentioned, as Carl built the next company, we decided to partner on that, and that is where we are today. So why is HR important? I don't think anybody disputes that fact, but I do know that it is not necessarily always the top of mind of entrepreneurs because you're dealing with so many other things. But you definitely, again, when you're thinking about growing your business and sustaining your business, you want to make sure you keep, you keep this kind of focus in mind, because the better that you build your people, the better that you build your systems and processes around people. There's the obvious where you obviously create an environment that people want to work in, they feel empowered. That's always a great thing. But it keeps you compliant. Everybody knows HR is kind of seen as a necessary evil sometimes, that, you have to have it because there are certain things that you have to do to keep compliant and avoid problems in the future. But in the very end, it actually does just make sound business sense. I mean, it's something that I've seen time and time again. So, for example, the restaurants that I worked with, when I started working with Carl, it was actually 3 restaurants. It was a restaurant called Solomon and Cuff. Then he opened the Anchor Spa, and then he had 67 Orange Street, which was already open when I started. But it was 3 restaurants, and one of them didn't make it, which was Solomon and Cuff. So it was something that we learned a lot about how to make sure we don't ever get into that situation again. And right now, both the restaurants are doing phenomenally well. And I think that a lot of people credit that with him taking a step back and looking at this HR side, and how to make that as financially beneficial for the company as well. So setting up an HR system is obviously a lot more complicated than what I have here. It takes hours, weeks, months. It's not something that happens overnight. But for those who have employees or looking to have employees in the future, I cannot stress enough how setting them up for success at the onset really, really helps your business. So, that starts with getting an onboarding process in place, and then building a handbook. And for those of you who have quite a few employees already, if you already have a handbook, I'm sure that this may be just like information you may already know. For those of you who are looking to obtain employees in the near future, or maybe you only have a couple, so you never did build a handbook. If you have 1 employee, you probably should have a handbook, and you probably should have an onboarding process set up. Again, one of the things that I've learned is that when you have things set up in the beginning, even if they don't seem like you need them right now, once it happens, it's much easier than to react to it when the time comes. So when you get your first employee, that's not when you want to think about writing a handbook or having an onboarding process for them. You want to have that already set up, so that once you're ready to go, it just happens seamlessly. So real quick, I just want to talk about the difference because between an employee and contractor, which some of you probably know. Obviously, a contractor is someone who does not get paid through payroll. The IRS particularly has very, 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 very strict, complicated rules about who can be classified as a contractor and who can be who should be classified as an employee. So it is really important that you always evaluate if you're making the right decision on how to set employees up. Some of the, or to consider them contractors, some of the guidelines on whether or not you want to use a contractor versus an employee. So obviously when you're first starting up, so I think Kwame had mentioned, he has contractors to help with production, and that's the same way we set up Uncle Wakely's. We don't have any employees right now. We have a contractor that helps us with production, and the reason we decided to do it that way is because we don't have the role fully defined yet. It's just like, we just need help. And someone is doing it, is helping us with it. It's part-time. So some of the rules that allow people to be classified as contractors is number of hours. Not to say that full-time workers can't be contractors, but if they're part-time, it's a lot easier to defend why they're a contractor versus if they're full-time. Another criteria is how different that position is in nature from your normal staffing structure. So if you have so let's just say you have an organization, you have a team of let's just say cashiers. You have a brick and mortar store and you're selling some products, and you have people in there who are your cashiers and maybe salespeople on the floor. One person comes in and says, yeah, I'll work for you, but I'm going to be a contractor, and they're going to be another cashier. That is a red flag for whether or not to set someone up as a contractor. So if you already have employees there performing that role, then it's likely you might want to stick to an employee structure for anybody else that you bring in that's doing that role. The only other condition where you can do that is if it's very, very short term, so less than a year, and it's defined that way. So someone is coming in, they're coming in to help as a gap to fill some staffing issues, but they're only set up there to be 6 months, 12 months, or something like that. If somebody's doing that role for over a year and they're still classified as a contractor, that can get you in a lot of trouble. So those are some of the things that you want to think about. It's, how unique the role is, how long they're going to be doing the role for, and how many hours a week do they work. So that's kind of the deciding factor on who's a contractor and who's an employee. So you always want to evaluate that if you do have contractors on staff. If you do have employees, you obviously have to give them a bunch of stuff to work for you. Contractors, not so much. A lot of times you can just hire a contractor and they sign a contract. But you don't have to, there's certain things a lot of people do contractors because, again, they don't know what the role is going to be, which is fine. They haven't defined their staffing model yet, which is fine, especially as a new entrepreneur. Yes.
Do you have to give a contractor a W-9?
You should. Not everybody does, but you should. It's what happens with contractors is at the end of the year, they should be issued a 1099, which means so you get a contractor, you pay them whatever bookkeeping system you use, particularly if you have an automated bookkeeping system, that it's going to recognize that you're making a payment to someone, even if you don't classify them as a contractor. But if any payments are made to them through either a check or, transferring from your bank account to them for something, they're going to issue them a 1099 at the end of the year. If you get audited for your contractors, they're probably going to ask you for a W-9. Do you have W-9s for everyone? To match the 1099s that were then produced at the end of the year. So are their social security numbers correct? If they don't have a business, are their EIN numbers a name of the business matching from the W-9 to the 1099. So it's certainly advisable. I know some people who don't, who forget to do it, but you should absolutely do it. It won't matter. It won't mean anything unless you get audited. But if you do, you want to have it there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before I move on in terms of like, since we're on the subject between contractors and employees, and if you have a situation that, you want to make sure you're classifying somebody correctly? And I can't see the full screen, so.
I have a question. So if you have a virtual assistant that sends you an invoice, is that would be a 1099 and then you need to 1099 them, or is that just a professional service you're paying for?
Yeah, exactly. So the virtual assistant's a little interesting, and I'm just learning about that myself, particularly if it's offshore. So if it's someone that you outsource, and let's just say they're outsourced to another country, obviously that country has completely different tax laws than we might. But if it's a US, if it's someone in the US, but they're still just like a virtual assistant that you contract out, they would, so that's the other thing. So people who, when you do your 1099s or your accountant does your 1099s at the end of the year, the things they're going to look for are W-9 and or an invoice. And obviously the most protected people are those who have both. People who send invoices, again, that makes it a lot clearer that they're a contractor. So if you have someone that you just hire as a contractor and they don't send you an invoice for payment, and you get audited or flagged, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do and defense on why that person should be a contractor. But yes, for virtual assistants, because they send you, they're not necessarily, some people do put them on payroll, but if you're going to keep them a contractor, again, if you have like, if your staffing model includes like 5 virtual assistants, and some of them are employees and some of them are, contractors, again, if you get flagged, you're going to be asked why, and you'll have to defend that. I'm not saying that it's indefensible. I'm just saying it's the burden is on you to defend why you did it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So once you do decide that someone's going to be a new hire, or in the future, if you're going to hire people who are actual employees, you do want to get a packet together and a little checklist of how they should be onboarded. Small businesses particularly have, again, the more you prepare up front, the more you have like a system and a documentation retention, process, so that everything's just easy. It's kept in one place. You're not bogged down in a lot of paperwork. You don't have a million papers in your office and you don't know where what is what. Employee records can be electronic. So that's number one. You do not have to give out paper forms. You do not have to keep paper forms. You do have to keep a record of it, but it can be electronic. It can be in a Google Drive that's restricted by access. It can be, in what's that one? There's a
DocuSign.
Yeah. So I do my employee paperwork through DocuSign, which I love. It's been super easy. In the restaurant world, people are like, wow, because in restaurants, it could be a hot mess in terms of how the paperwork's done and where it is. So it's fairly inexpensive. It's simple. You create the upfront work is creating forms and making sure all the fields are set up correctly. But once that's done, it's a click of a button. Every time somebody comes on, you click a button and they get it, they sign it. Most people have commented on how easy that process was, and then you always have a record of it. And you never have to, you can take that, download that packet and put it somewhere else that might, like in a Dropbox or a Google Drive. But you can also just keep it in DocuSign because you can still pull it up easily. So I love DocuSign. It's been a lifesaver. So I can't stress enough again, like, if you're thinking about getting employees in the next few months or even a year, start thinking about that process now, because when it happens, the last thing you want to think about is, how do I get them on board, and am I giving them all the right paperwork, and do they, so it's just something to like kind of put on your to-do list of like, create this process for them. So things that you want to include in your new hire packet, and this is specifically for Connecticut. New York has a much longer list. But you definitely want, a welcome letter, obviously. You can do either a personal data form or employee application. So there's always this debate. Do you have to give people applications? Particularly, I hate filling out job applications. Once I've given my resume, I'm like, why do I have to fill out a job application too? Job applications are not required by law. They are highly recommended, but they aren't required by law. And the reason they're recommended is because sometimes obviously a resume is something that people can just put together, and it could be false. It could be, anything that they want to be. It could be omitting information. And an employee application, because you sign something that says, I'm providing all the information. If there's ever a situation where someone gave you misleading information and you want to terminate them easily, you have a backup to say, well, you told me this, and it turns out that that's not true. Or if you want to do background checks, you might want to do an employee application. Given that Connecticut, in most states, there's a few that aren't, but Connecticut is definitely one of them, is employee at will. I don't foresee it as a huge risk. I mean, it depends on the type of business you're in. If you need certifications for hair salons, for example, you need to know those people went to a certain school or that they got a certain certification or something. I would recommend it. If it's more like someone who's going to be an assistant or do production work for, something like that, do more administrative work. I don't know if it's that necessary. What you do have to do, though, is if you decide to do applications for one person, you got to do it for everybody. So you can't be like, well, this role gets application, but this doesn't. So you either do them or you don't do them. Neither, it's not against the law. You just have to evaluate if you want to have them. Otherwise, just a form where people fill out certain information is enough as well. It doesn't have to be a full application. Everybody should get a federal W-4 and also a Connecticut W-4. I know a lot of businesses miss the state W-4 or state tax form, but it's very important that that's in there. If you have a payroll provider, and I'll talk about that in a second, that allows people to actually fill that out themselves online, I would highly recommend that, because then you don't get stuck in tax time comes and someone's like, I filled out this W-4 form and it's not correct, or you should have told me to, write it this way. One thing I want to advise, if any employee asks you how to fill out their W-4 forms, please tell them you are not a tax attorney or professional. You cannot advise them how to fill out their W-4 forms. I don't care if you're in HR. I don't care if you're the boss of the company, the owner of the company. You should not be advising people on how to fill out their individual tax forms. Those need to be handled by a tax professional. They need to go to someone who actually understands taxes, because otherwise you can get yourself into a lot of trouble and just complications with someone thinking that you've advised them incorrectly. And unless you are a tax professional or a tax attorney, you aren't allowed to advise them on their taxes. Does that make sense? And that's why it's good, like, for them to just fill it out on their own online. The I-9, obviously is required for every single employer to give to every single employee. They must provide documentation that they are eligible to work in the country. I find that a lot of people still have confusion about this in terms of like what documents to give. So in terms of the I-9, you have three kind of categories, right? One is a category where it gives you a list of eligible documentation that people can provide that serves as their photo identification. So a driver's license is an obvious one, right? A state ID is another one. And, you know, there's certain other ones that college ID does not count. It has to be a state ID or driver's ID. And then there's obviously a list of other ones. So that says this person is that person in that photo, and I can verify their ID, right? The second document that they would have to provide, if they provide one from that list, would be one that says, I can work in this country. So that would be a social security card or a birth certificate or something like that. It won't have a photo attached to it, but it would say, you know, it would be some document that verifies you're allowed to work in the country. The other category is one that provides both. So a passport has your photo ID, but you cannot get a passport unless you're certified, you know, that shows that you can work. If you have a US passport, obviously, you can work in the country. A permanent resident ID. So you weren't born here, but you're now a permanent resident. That card has your photo ID, but also to be a permanent resident, that means you can work in the country. So those are things that, so if they provide anything that has a photo ID and something, you know, that shows that they can work in the country, they only need to provide the one ID. If they have an ID plus, you know, like a driver's license, anyone can get a driver's license. That doesn't mean you're a citizen. It doesn't mean you're a permanent resident. It doesn't mean you have authorization to work in the country. So that's why you would need that additional documentation to say, yes, I also have a social security card. And then likewise, a social security card doesn't have your ID on it. So that's why in those instances, people need to provide two, or they can provide one as long as it meets both requirements. Does anybody have questions about that? Okay, so the rest of the stuff that needs to be provided to an employee can usually be accommodated in a handbook. Some people do a handbook and then they have separate notices and or policies to provide. I think if you just include what needs to be included in a handbook, that's the easiest way to do it. Regarding a handbook and or your federal W-4 or Connecticut W-4 forms, one of the biggest benefits from having a good payroll provider is that they will make sure you're in line with both of those. So that takes the burden off of you. So a lot of payroll companies, and I'll go into that a little bit later, will provide like an HR support center. They'll help you, you know, some of that can include helping you make sure that you have a good handbook in place and that handbook is comprehensive, both from the federal level and from the Connecticut level. But when you build a handbook, so when you build a handbook, you want to kind of think about 4 buckets, right? And I like to do these buckets in order because I feel like nobody wants to read an employee handbook and from front to end, and nobody should have to. And usually when I give out a handbook or I do an orientation, I tell employees, you know, this is to serve as a reference for you. Particularly when you get to the local, state, and federal policies, you should have the information should you need it. But things that I would like people to read are our mission, vision, values, and our company policies, certainly. The rest can be, it's there if you need it. You can read it at your own leisure, but you don't have to read it to sign it. To sign it, you're just kind of saying you acknowledge it. But when you start off strong, when you have something, when you have a compelling story of why people should work there, and then, you know, one, you engage them, it's a lot easier reading than reading like, you know, when can I take FMLA or something like that. Yes, Kim.
So what if you run into a situation like sexual harassment?
So sexual harassment. Yes, sexual harassment absolutely needs to be in the handbook. So that the sexual harassment policy would fall under, it would fall under state and federal. So there's a federal sexual harassment policy, and then some states, and I believe Connecticut is one of them, I know New York is, will have their own additional sexual harassment policy. And those absolutely need to be in the handbook. And again, it should go over, so people should know that those policies exist. People should know that those policies outline their rights and a process for any claims. People should know what to do in case they have a situation and how to handle it. It should be a whole, section on what to do if you experience or witness sexual harassment. What is kind of like the process once that happens, and what are your resources. And again, a strong payroll company who has an HR support center to help you will be very helpful for that. You can, they do advise, it can be very pricey. They do advise, attorneys to look over a handbook and sign off on it.
Okay.
So like if you have, a law firm, I mean, you don't want them to draft it or write it because you're gonna be paying a lot of money.
Okay.
So it's probably easier to draft one, or work with your payroll company to draft one, or there's lots of resources online, which I do have a slide that shows kind of some resources, and it'll, the presentation that'll be sent out to you later will be hyperlinked so that you know where to go for some of these things. I would do that, engage someone like myself who's an HR consultant, or if you do a search for other HR consulting firms, or just services. I would do all those before going to a law firm to ask them to write a handbook for you.
Okay.
you can have them review it, but I would have it written.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about handbooks specifically? I mean, I'll go a little bit more into this in a second, and I figured our in-class activity. So what I was, as I finish up the presentation shortly here, let me see how I'm doing on time. Oh, wow, only have 8 minutes, I'm sorry. So I'll go through these very quickly. But the activity obviously does not have to be done here because you have another exciting presentation, coming up, but it can be done offline. And if you guys want to then send it to me, just to review, that would be great. Right now, how do I get back? Oh, here we go. Okay. So creating mission, vision, values is something that's really important, and it is what I had slated for your activity. The next activity I had for you was to develop company specific policies. And these are things like, do you have a dress code? Do you have an attendance policy? Do you have a, if someone, outside working arrangements, so someone who has more than one job, you can put a policy in that. Do you have a cell phone policy? Do you have, anything like that? So those are the two things that you should come up with, and you can work with an HR business partner or consultant to come up with those things. You should also have a very strong performance and or coaching and or feedback philosophy and process in there. And then the local, state, and federal policies are things that, again, you can find a lot of that online or through your payroll company, that will build that stuff in there. I mean, a lot of it is very legal language. So these are some resources that I have for you guys, and it's, again, they're hyperlinked in the presentation. So the CBIA is a very, very good resource if you're starting off as a small business on, what are some things you need to do and who you can look for, particularly in the Connecticut area, to help you. That's cost effective. The best payroll services is for small businesses. I encourage you all to look at that. Yes, Kim.
Do you work for art? Do you barter for art? Because I see your wall is blank behind you.
I have a blank wall. We just moved. We do need art.
Okay, so you should contact me.
Well, we can talk offline. I'm in Connecticut
thank
about
you.
once a week. So
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you for your services. Thank you.
No problem. Real quick, I just want to say for best payroll services, so we use QuickBooks, and we've been using QuickBooks for our actual books for quite some time. And then I realized that they had this really cool payroll function. It is extremely cost effective. They make sure that you're compliant with all your employee and employer taxes, and filing your taxes and getting your W-2s and when they need to happen. I mean, they take a lot of the legwork out from you doing it. Plus it ties obviously directly with your book, so there's no integration and or manual kind of like reconciliation that has to happen there. They do have others on the list, but my recommendation is definitely to look into QuickBooks for payroll. Square, if some of you are retailers and may use Square, Square also has a payroll function, and it should be fairly inexpensive. You absolutely, as soon as you get one employee, there's two things you need to make sure you look into. One is workers' compensation in Connecticut. Again, your payroll company will probably help you find a workers' comp provider, but I provided some additional links just in case. And then there's a new policy on Connecticut paid family leave. And this applies if you have one employee. You need to know about it. You need to make sure deductions are happening outside of are happening in employees' paychecks to cover it. They're very minor deductions. You need to know the process if somebody applies for it. So I encourage you to look at that link. And then of course, our very good Connecticut Department of Labor for all things, if you have any issues, questions, whatever. So we do not have time to do an in-class activity, but what I would encourage you guys to start with is start drafting your mission, vision, and values. It's a very, very valuable exercise. We've done it at the restaurants, and it's amazing how when you really create something compelling and resonating, that when you start to hire against that. You start to performance manage against that, and it's completely okay. And you start to build the type of culture you want in your organization. So it may sound hokey or whatever, but it's a great exercise, and I encourage everybody to take it seriously. And then start thinking about what are your individual company policies, because that's very important. And again, a law firm necessarily can't tell you what your company is going to do. You want to think about your own company policies. And then, just thank you. There's my information on there in case you guys ever just want to reach out to me for anything. The Anchor email is for both restaurants. The Uncle Whately's is for Uncle Whately's. If you guys want some ginger beer, let me know. It's delicious. We also sell it at the Anchor and feature it in our cocktails. And that, and I just provided the websites for the group that I work with. So any questions before we turn you over?
Monica, my phone number is 203-500-0159.
Okay. We'll definitely be in touch. I'll come by when I come to Connecticut.
Okay, great.
This was wonderful, Monica.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're
A
welcome.
lot of information in a Power Pack session. And we will be sending out the activity. And it's so true. When you commit to a mission, vision, and value, you attract those people. So I think it is definitely something that if you haven't already done it, to really do it. And it's a great way to connect back with Monica. So thank you again, Monica.
You're welcome. And come to the Anchor if you haven't been already.
Thank you, Monica. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your next session.
Bye.
Bye.
Whew, so I said it was going to be a lot this morning, so we are not going to waste any minutes, and we're going to thank Wanda Carlson for joining us this morning. What we did quickly, and we will try and do it even quicker this time, you've got your name and your business and the type of business. That's it, so that we don't lose any precious time from Wanda. And I'm going to just ask you all to toss it to the next person. So I'm going to start with Kim and ask you to toss it to a colleague.
Okay. Hi, I have Wabi Gallery, and Wabi Gallery is an inclusive gallery for young people and emerging artists. It is a friendly, welcoming space that has art programming and a work share space that is working. It's a unique space for community and for people to gather. I'm going to toss it to Latrell.
How did I know? My name is Latrell. I'm the owner of the Brown Skin Co., which is a skincare and waxing company. And what else is I supposed to add?
That's pretty much it. You did it. And send it off to someone else.
Melissa.
Hello, my name is Melissa. I'm the founder of Le Pair, which is an inspirational clothing brand that seeks to spread awareness, advocacy, and adopt families experiencing postpartum depression.
Pick someone.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna pass it to Crystal Harris.
Good morning, I'm Crystal Harris. I'm the owner of Studio Cleo Rose in Milford, Connecticut. Studio Cleo Rose is a healthy hair and natural hair salon that specializes in hair restoration services. I'm gonna throw it to Sandra.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Salmon. I am a home care. I have a home care agency in Woodbridge, Connecticut. We specializes in concierge services. If you can think it, we try to make it possible.
Pass it off.
Oh, I'm sorry, Renee.
Hello, good morning. My name is Renee Griffin, and I have a hair and beauty salon in New Haven, and we provide hair, makeup, intimate waxing, facials, lashes, and we're adding massage therapy soon. So that's what I do.
Pass it off.
Right, pass it off. My bad. I'm gonna pass it to Janora.
Hi, my name is Janora. I'm the CEO and founder of the Self-Care Network LLC, and I am a diversity, equity, inclusion consulting agency. I am through on my phone, so I can't see who to pass it off to. So whoever wants.
Kibra.
Hello, my name is Kibra Smith Bolden. I own Holistic Home Healthcare. We're a non-clinical home care agency that hires from within the community and serves the community.
Pass it off.
I'm last.
Renee go? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm last.
Okay.
This is Crystal Jackson. I have a mental health and wellness therapy practice where we provide therapy, wellness, and training services to the community and beyond.
I haven't gone either. I'm Kwame Asari. I'm the owner and CEO of Oshito Pepper Sauce. We manufacture and distribute pepper sauce condiments, originally from Ghana, West Africa.
And Danielle.
I am Danielle Turner. I'm the owner of Inner You Clinical Services. I do therapy, self-care coaching, and I'm an author.
And I think that's it.
All right. Thank you. I'm Wanda Carlson. I'm a State Farm agent here in Milford. Been here for 18 years, and I've been with the company for 29 years. So State Farm and I go back a long way. Am I supposed to start? Is that the format that we've been dealing with? Okay.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Wanda. If
No
you have
problem. I have a PowerPoint. Can I share it?
Yes, you have ability to share.
Awesome. Good, good, good. Let's see how this goes. All right. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? It says small business insurance.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let me see if I can do this. So again, I'm Wanda Carlson. I'm a State Farm agent. One of the things I've noticed from everyone who introduced themselves, that each and every one of you are unique and different with your business. Now, I think a couple of you kind of in the same category of businesses, but all of you are definitely unique in the business that you have. One of the things that I want to share with you is small business insurance should be tailored to what you have and what you're doing. How many of you have commercial liability insurance? I see one hand. I can't see everybody, so kind of let me know.
I do.
So good. So that's a couple. How many people? Oh, I have a hand up raised. I can't see how many, but that's good. Thank you for sharing that, because I think I saw a statistic that said only 50% of people have business insurance that are small business owners. So one of the things I want to let you all know, and a lot of the reason for that is people try to get business insurance and they need it next week and they can't get it fast enough. So instead of continuing to search, they stop the search for business insurance. So let's talk about some of the things that you may need in the future, and we'll go from there. So my slide presentation will go pretty quick, and then I do have something for you all to do. I don't know how many of you just starting your business, or you've had your business for a few years, but there's 4 phases of business. We've got the startup, where you're getting established, you're reinvesting your profits, you're testing your business plan. The other is growth. Your sales and customers are starting to increase. You might be getting some employees now. Your business plan, your financing, you're reevaluating, your business is growing. Maturity is you're starting to be more stable. You have your loyal customer base. Growth is stable. You'll continue to evaluate the market for ways to see what the market conditions are. And then ultimately, you're going to transfer. You're approaching retirement, or you're looking for ways to sell your business. So there's 4 phases of business. And some of you have structured your business differently. Some of you are sole proprietors, you're individuals. Some of you have partnerships. Most people I see have the limited liability company, or you might incorporate and become a corporation. There's other things like nonprofits, estates, joint ventures, and trust. So what small business insurance concerns do you have? Having adequate coverage, excess liability limits, utility interruption, data compromise, identity restoration, employment practices liability insurance. One of the things that I heard the last presenter say that you need to have sexual harassment in your handbook. Well, this is a type, the employment practices liability insurance is a part of having that insurance can help you if your employees decide to sue you, or if someone sues you for libel and slander. And then you have your professional services liability. So business assets, in order to have your business insurance, the 2 areas that you're going to be looking at are your assets, to protect your assets, and the other is liability in case someone tries to sue you. So those are 2 of the big key commercial liability policies, the reason that they exist. So some of the questions I have on business asset protection: do you own or lease the building where your business is located? If you're leasing, you definitely need to have a commercial policy, so that the landlord will ask you for that. They need to see that you're insured. Do you have a significant investment in mobile equipment, computers, data, media, owned or leased? Do you deliver or ship property or products for your customers? Does your business own, lease, or rent vehicles? And do employees use their own vehicles for business purposes? So those are some of the questions that an insurance agent will ask you, just to make sure that they're putting the proper protection in that policy for you. How many employees do you have? So those are the assets. How many employees you have gives a person an idea on how the business is growing and making sure that you're protecting them. And then that goes right into workers' compensation. And she mentioned that, I think she said QuickBooks can do your workers' compensation. One of the things about workers' compensation, you have to have it if you have 1 or more employees in the state of Connecticut. Some places you can actually exclude yourself from workers' compensation as a business owner. Some people choose not to do that. They want to have it as well. So that if someone gets hurt on the job, this is very important that you have this. Not all insurance companies have that policy, but you definitely have to have it. The advantages of using your payroll service is that they can actually do they have access to how much money that your employees are making and how much money you have. So they can actually have the workers' compensation, I guess, to take the monthly charges or premium out of their service for you, so you don't have to worry about that. But one of the things this can cover is medical treatment, temporary disability, permanent disability benefits, and death survivor benefits.
Excuse me, does that include full-time or part-time?
So mostly it's for full-time employees, but you definitely need to, when it comes to the workers' comp policy, you want to make sure that you're letting whoever's doing that policy know how many people are full-time, how many people are part-time, how much are they making. And the other thing about workers' comp you have to be careful with is you don't want to ever underestimate during that year how much you're going to pay your employees. So like, for instance, I just hired a new person. So I immediately contacted my workers' comp, my workers' comp insurance provider to let them know, by the way, I just hired a new person. We need to increase how much my salaries are going to be for this year. Because if you underestimate how much salaries you're going to have for the year, the government will ask you to pay them back. Say you owe, they will actually go back and say, oh, you owe us X amount of dollars. You have 45 days to pay it, versus giving them that information up front and sometimes I always recommend making sure you have more salaries than you really have, so you can actually get a refund versus just telling them exactly how much it's going to be.
Okay, thank you.
And hold on a second, I'm going to go in here. So one of the other things that was on my agenda was to talk about commercial liability umbrella policies. And basically, it's similar to a personal liability umbrella policy that you have through, that you might have through your home, having your cars in your house. You can actually have a personal liability umbrella. Basically, what that does is it umbrellas your policy. And I'm going to go to the next page here that shows this. So you can do $1 million or more for a commercial liability umbrella policy. But it starts with what you actually have as far as insurance. What are your underlying policies? Some people invest in rental dwellings, apartments, even your business auto would be included in this. So for instance, say you were, and I'll give you an example, the business owner. So you have your business owner's policy, maybe you have a condo association or a residential condo association. Those things can be umbrellaed with a commercial liability umbrella policy. And what would happen is, say you're in an auto accident with your business car, and you have $250,000 and you clearly hurt someone. The first $250,000 would come under that business auto policy, and then $1 million, if that person sued you for $1 million, that $250,000 would be exhausted first, and then they would take the rest out of the $1 million commercial liability umbrella policy. So those are policies to have as assets in something you can talk to someone about as your business is getting more in the maturity stage. So that's a up. Hold on a second. And now we're going to talk about, now, do you guys have any questions about the different business assets and the things that I've talked about? Because I'm going to be we're going to go into, basically, we're going to go over life insurance now. Any questions? Okay. So one of the things I think is very important is small business life insurance. And also just to have your own personal life insurance. And we're going to start here with what would happen to your business if you or the other owner passed away. Would heirs need to sell their portion of the business to pay liabilities? Have you considered the financial impact to your business if a key employee died? So there's different types of life insurance. There's your individual life insurance. You have buy-sell agreements, you have key person insurance, and there's group life insurance for your employees. And I'm hoping everybody has a pen and paper, because I'm going to show you guys how to evaluate and determine what your life needs are personally. So the first thing, if you have a piece of paper, I want you to go straight down the page and I want you to write LIFE, just as it's showing here on this paper. And how much life insurance do you need? So L, think of all the loans and debt that you have right now. So those are for loans, credit card debts, any type of anything that you owe. If you have a mortgage, put that amount down. I is for income. How much income do you bring in? If you're a small business owner and you don't know how much you're going to be making, use last year's, what you made last year in income. Because sometimes people, it's hard for them to predict what they've had in the past. F is for final expense. Do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? That's important to know. So that would be if it's for a funeral. I don't know how many of you have gone through, had a funeral in the family, but I know around here it's probably about $12,000 to $15,000 for a funeral expense. Cremation is 2 to 3. And the last is education. If you have children, do you want them to go to private or public college? So if you add all of that up, and if you have life insurance already and take that out, that's going to give you an idea of how much life insurance you need. How many people have life insurance? Separate? Okay. Do you know if it's whole life or term? Yeah, one.
I have both.
You have both? Okay.
Yes.
And do you know, why did you purchase life insurance?
Because I have 6 children.
That will do it. Definitely.
I have so if I walk away from, leave this earth, which is bound to happen, right? We can always count on that. I want to make sure my spouse can continue to live the lifestyle that she is accustomed to. And if she leaves this world, she wants to make sure that I can continue the lifestyle and raise our children the way that we are living. So we pay $1 trillion in insurance a month.
Okay, but you don't have to think about it at night, right? You don't have.
No, we don't have to think about
worry
it.
about, right?
No, we don't.
And that's a nice thing to have, that you don't have to. That's one thing I tell people. They'll say, "Oh, I don't need this," or we'll worry about it later. And I'm like, but that's one of those things that is going to be on the back of your mind if you don't have life insurance. And I know 1 in 7 people, believe it or not, don't have life insurance. So life insurance is very important. And as small business owners, you should have individual life insurance, and you should also have business for the business, because if something happens and you leave, who's going to take care of the debt that you're leaving behind? And the business, and especially if you want to leave that business for a legacy. Let's go and look at the different types for businesses. So was that okay? Did everybody understand the assignment that I gave you? And did it make sense? Any questions on that? Because I know a lot of times people always go, well, I really don't know how much I need. So that's why I gave it to you straight down. And this you can do anytime, anywhere, with anybody. If someone says, I need life insurance, but I don't know how much I need, this is a really good place to start.
So if we end up, so you said how much do we need? So I just found out how much I need, and I don't have how much I need.
So that's what, as insurance agents, we call, you have a gap in insurance. So we need to reevaluate and look at that and see what else you need. Because that's the one thing people don't realize is that, yes, you may have insurance, but we do know that sometimes there is going to be a gap in insurance. So that's where we need to focus in on that area. Maybe you need to get some more life insurance. That
Okay.
makes sense, Kim? Because a lot of times when you bought that policy, it could have been 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
And things change. Our life changes. There's like 7 times in your life you should be buying life insurance. So from a baby being born, from 0 all the way up to 15 when they get their first car, they need to get some more life insurance. They're going to college, more life insurance. They're getting married. They're buying their first house. You're getting to retirement age. So there's all different stages in life that we need to evaluate and see what the needs are, because things are changing. Those are those life events. Yeah. So now we've got to kind of get into, as a small business owner, some things that there are contracts that exist and there are life policies that exist specifically for business insurance. So we've got the buy-sell agreement. It's between partners or shareholders of a corporation, and it obligates them to purchase the interest of the deceased person. A lot of people will say, you really don't want your partner's spouse to come in and start taking over the business. This gives the person who's deceased the opportunity to give money to their family so that they're not losing out on the business once the business, so they can either sell the business or continue the business. And then there's 3 common types. There's a cross purchase, there's an entity, and there's a wait and see. Those are things that, as your business grows, and if you have a partner, those are some areas that you can definitely talk to your insurance agent about. And there's also the key person or key employee. So I'm a mom and pop shop. It's just my husband and I always say he's my key person. If something happened to him, I definitely need to make sure I have insurance on him, because I'm going to have to replace him with someone if I continue the business without him. So if he passes away, I need to cover the expense of finding a new employee to train and attract that person. I need to continue after he's gone. What do we do with developing of the programs? And then here it's talking about creditors and customers that your business will continue. I need to be able to let people know, I know he's gone, but we need to continue this business. How am I going to replace him? So having that extra life insurance on a key employee allows you to not have to stress during that period as you're trying to find a new person. And there's different ways to do that. There's the estimate the cost of finding and hiring a replacement. And the other is how much profit does that key employee bring in year over year? That's how you can actually calculate the insurance for that. And the next one is group life insurance. I don't know how many of you have employees, but right now, the big thing that I'm seeing is hiring and retaining employees. One of the things that as business owners, you might want to consider is group life insurance. If you have 5 or more employees, you can do a group life for them. It's a small policy, but it's something that corporate America does for their people. And the other thing would be doing, if you can get disability for those employees, helping them with some of those benefits can really keep your employees for retention purposes. And that's pretty much what I wanted to go over with you all today. I didn't know if you had any other questions we can go through.
I have plenty.
What's that?
I have a few. I start with the group life insurance.
Okay.
Can you give me a call? Because we actually just have someone came in and spoke to us about group life insurance and disability. So my number is 203-589-2943. So if you give me a call, I can we can talk about that.
And that's Sandra?
Yes, ma'am.
Solomon. Okay. Definitely talk to you about that. And that's, you know, it's a good benefit for them to have. And it's not that costly either when you think about all your employees. Anybody else have any questions?
I have another question. I saw that you talked about life insurance, but I didn't hear anything about long-term care insurance.
Sure. You know why? In the state of Connecticut, long-term care insurance is almost to a point where there aren't very many providers that provide that type of policy. And what's happening is they're using life insurance and having a rider for long-term care on it. So to find long-term care, and I can tell you for a fact, I know in order for an insurance carrier to have long-term care, the premiums on that is very expensive. So a lot of insurance companies have stopped selling long-term care. And I don't even talk about it. 10 years ago, definitely talked about it. Even my sister asked me about that the other day. She's like, why don't I have long-term care? It's really hard to get in all states, not just Connecticut, but Connecticut, it's very difficult.
I guess I was fortunate. Back when it came on, I thought it was a fad myself, but I took a leap of faith and I bought it. And because I bought into it so early, I have lifetime coverage.
Great.
I have lifetime coverage and I only pay $206 a month. And now I try to, you know, I've been looking into it, and the only thing I'm seeing now is 7 years. I'm trying to see.
You're never gonna get it as cheap as that, and I would never get rid of that policy.
Oh no, they tried. Even the long-term care company tried to come at me, trying to come at me about it. Every year they come at me about something, because last October they stopped doing it totally. And they try to come at me at it because my amount can't be raised, but I have the rider on it. So as inflation goes up, everybody's like, I don't know. I bought into it.
They don't make those anymore. That is for sure. Because I know even the ones that I have, my husband and I have, every year it goes up just with that rider that's on it. So very good. I'm very happy that you were able to get that, Sandra. Not most people won't be able to ever get long-term care, which is unfortunate, because right now people need it. And you're seeing a lot of people that are very sick that are going with COVID and everything that's happened. That's, you know, long-term care is so important.
Wanda, I have a question, and maybe I missed it, so apologize if I missed it. When you talked about small business insurance, did you talk about professional insurance? Like, so
I kind of skipped over it. Hold on a second. So the professional insurance, are you talking about I put in professional liability. So maybe like a dentist has professional liability. What do you do? Oh, you're with gotcha. I'm actually a knownpreneur from cohort 1. Okay. But I know that a number of us are licensed professionals, and we provide those services under our license as well. I do consulting, so some of my contracts require that I have professional liability insurance. Can you talk a little bit about that? Sure. So as a consultant, there's a separate, it could be in the commercial liability policy. There's a section in there for your services. So if you give someone some type of, maybe they'll come back and say, well, you gave me the wrong information and I'm going to sue you. That would be under the professional, licensed professional. Another instance, a dentist, the dentist has one they have a special one. Some people that do when you go to work out, so when you're, your personal trainers, they go through a specialized location to get their professional liability. In case they hurt someone, they have to have that backup. They need to have their own insurance for that. And there are places that you can get a separate, it's a separate, like, it's not even a rider, it's a separate policy. So I do know, like, dentists, attorneys, doctors go to a special place. Consultants especially. I know I have one lady, she had to do a consulting questionnaire, and that allowed us to understand what she was consulting and whether we could actually insure her or not. So yes, we do have that. That's under, you're right, it's called professional liability insurance.
And would that be the same insurance if you contract with, sometimes municipalities, states, and the federal government require a certain level of insurance? Is that the same thing, or is that the commercial?
Usually those are the commercial policies that they're looking for, just making sure you have business insurance when you're going into their facilities. So that's another thing you need to understand. When you have business insurance, you may be asked, if you say you're going on the green to, you're gonna have your clothing line out, you wanna have, the vendors, when you're a vendor at a different event, they'll ask you for a certificate of insurance. Those are important, and you can't get a certificate of insurance unless you have business insurance or commercial insurance. So those are important to make sure that you have your business insurance in order before you decide you're going to go to some event. And I know of a lot of people who I spoke to, they have an event next week, they haven't told their insurance carrier. You definitely have to let them know well in advance to get those certificates of insurance, because some places it might take 2 to 3 weeks to get one. I know State Farm is just starting up where they're allowing business owners to go online and into their statefarm.com website, and they can actually get their own certificate of insurance, which is really very good. Any other questions?
Do you barter artwork for insurance?
No, I don't. But you are working at Kim.
I'm trying.
I know. I got you.
That's a good one, Kim. I like that.
I know.
I like that barter. I really like that.
Consistent. No, it's really good. And I do need art. Seriously. And my background has, that's just lucky me that I got State Farm behind me.
So Wanda, if somebody was going to start, like, what would be the steps to get started? And I know we did the life exercise, but how would you advise someone to get started? Because it all at once, it seems overwhelming.
It
and
does.
all at once, you can't just come out and buy, $500,000 worth of insurance. So can you give us like a pathway or roadmap?
Sure. I would say the first thing you need to do is find someone that's going to sit down and find out more about your business and break down some of the areas. State Farm has a business owner assessment. So if anybody wants me to do their assessment, I can do that. And it just allows us to find out what areas that you really need insurance in. There's the basic, you definitely need to have commercial liability. That protects your personal business personal property. It also protects you against lawsuits. So those are, like, if I were to start my business, the first thing I know is I need to get business insurance. I have to get that commercial liability insurance. Not everyone is going to be able to insure every business. So that's why it takes a while. As you know, when you're starting off your business, and you're thinking, how am I going to afford to pay for insurance? I got to get, product and services and all of those things. But as you're starting your business, you need to think, how much is my business insurance going to cost? And you need to factor that in as part of your monthly bills. It should be just like your utilities, all of the things that you have to do as a small business owner. You should think business insurance should be right in there every month. You should be able to afford that, and that might be part of your cost to your consumers to add that in. So don't push that off to the side. That's very important, because I'm going to give you some examples. Like I got a call. I can do CBD stores, for instance, and over in Brantford there was a fire, and I know the owner who actually, what he does is he goes out and he has, he basically trains people on how to open up a business. And usually he'll call me and say, Wanda, I have this, business that's just starting up. I need to get their insurance, and I'll help him with that. But I got a call on a Saturday. I got a text from him and he said, hey, we had a fire on this street and I need some help. Can you help me? And I'm like, looking in my computer, I can't find this business. Come to find out, the tenants above had a fire, and the fire department came out. And of course, when they go in, they basically, all of the top floor, all the water came down into the CBD store. So the whole bottom was flooded with water. All the product was destroyed, everything. So they had to basically, I think that was like 3 months ago, they're just reopening the store. Had they not had insurance, they wouldn't be reopening, because they just opened like a year earlier. So as a small business owner, you need to have that assurance that you have insurance, and that if something like that happens, you're going to be okay. And I've seen that happen where a gentleman, I think it was up in Middletown, fire totally destroyed his building. He didn't have business insurance. So he's never going to be able to open up again. So those are the reasons why you need to have business insurance.
Wanda, I have insurance currently that's, I have a building that I have a retail space that I purchased in a condominium building.
Okay.
On Court Street, downtown New Haven. Okay. And it's 2,000 square feet. I currently have insurance to cover the contractors that will be coming in. Okay. There's no business in that space. It's just for renovations, and if anything were to happen to the contractors, basic coverage, right? Okay. But I'd like to talk to you about looking over a policy, comparing policies with the company that I have now. Okay. Moving forward, what my needs will be once the space is renovated, and then the types of activities that I'll have in that space. Okay,
that's good. Now, you said it's a condo?
It's a retail condominium space.
Okay. And are there people living in that condo?
Above and around me.
Okay. And that's something, when you're looking for space, believe it or not, if you have tenants that live above you or in the building, your insurance will be less, because you have someone that's in the building 24 hours versus me. I'm in a building and there's no one here. After hours, I leave. There's no one here. If anything happens, someone's going to call the fire department or police or whatever. You have that. So that's something to be interested. Kim, you have my phone number. It's on that slide, the last one.
Okay. And yeah. I hope that you can give me some discounts. Something, because my life insurance policy is, there's a big old gap.
Yeah, we gotta talk about that gap. No, for sure. Oh my goodness. Oh my. So is there any other questions, ladies? Seems, and gentlemen, there's a couple of guys too.
I have a quick question.
Sure, Latrell.
So I was mistaken earlier when you asked about the commercial insurance. I actually have professional liability, but as as an independent contractor in a place who has commercial, I'm under Track House and they have their commercial insurance, but I still need that for my business as well.
So what's your business again?
I do skincare and waxing.
Okay, so you definitely have to have that professional liability, because if you hurt somebody, and it's like, it's just like a hairstylist, they have their own professional liability. That's very important to have. Do you
Yes,
have
I have the professional liability, but that's all I have. So I'm wondering, do I need like an additional?
Okay, so do you have, and you do skincare, is that, let me ask you about the skincare products. Are you using someone else's products or did you make these products?
I'm using products from a professional skincare company. So I have a professional skincare liability specifically for my my esthetician license.
Where do you keep your products?
In the treatment room.
And so your landlord hasn't requires you to show proof of insurance, that you have insurance in the building that are you renting or do you own?
I'm renting.
Okay.
I'm renting a space at Track House.
And it's a retail space?
Mm-hmm.
You would definitely need to have a commercial liability policy. And it's not that expensive either. A lot of people assume that it's going to be very costly. I've seen that insurance to cover you and your products for as low as like $300 to $400 a year, just so you know.
So is that only if I keep retail on hand? Because as of right now,
that's so. Do you have people that come into your space?
Mm-hmm.
Someone slipped and fell. Are you covered?
Okay, that's covered. Yeah, that's covered under my professional liability. Yes.
That's more, the professional liability is more for, say you put something on someone's face and then they break out and they say, oh, I don't know what you did, and they try to go against you through a lawsuit. That would be, from your professional opinion, this is what you did, and maybe it was an appeal and it peeled and they, scarred or something. They could try to go after you through your professional liability. But I'll talk to you more if you want to give me a call, Latrell. I'll look for your call.
Okay, thank you.
That. No problem. And I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, so let me go over here.
No questions in the chat. I did have another. So if you work out of your home,
yes,
and you have homeowners insurance, can you talk about what that, what covers and is not covered?
So some people, and it's funny you say that, because I have a lot of marketers, people that work out of the house, and they want to use their homeowners, which you can extend to their business. So maybe you have someone coming into the house, you're doing a consultation and you want to use your homeowners. I strongly recommend you don't use your homeowners, because nowadays the homeowners insurance, they have higher deductibles. Like sometimes you'll see 0.5% or 1% of your homeowners is the deductible. So that can be like $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. Whereas if you have your own commercial liability policy, it could be $500 deductible, and it doesn't attach to your home. And you don't want to have to put in a claim under your homeowner's insurance, because that's one place, homeowners is for a catastrophe, and it shouldn't be used for your business, even though people do. There is definitely an endorsement that you can add to have business, your products, you can have business insurance in your house. And there are a lot of women that do that. But I still recommend that they get a separate policy. Like I was saying, it's affordable and it's part of doing business. And if you have a separate policy, say you do have a booth somewhere, you can actually get that certificate insurance to do the types of things that you need to do if you're out and trying to do your wares. Does that help?
Definitely. I was trying to get off of mute. Yes, it does.
Ms. Carlson, please don't forget to call me, because we are actually working with another company right now. We haven't made any decision yet, so please call me.
I will, definitely.
Any other questions? This has been wonderful. Definitely.
I have a question. My camera's not working
That's
right now.
okay.
This is Crystal.
Hi, Kristen.
So I currently have, I think, workers' comp and I have professional liability. So I have a therapy practice. So my insurance needs may be a little different. I don't
Right.
have, sounds like I need to get something. I know I need to do a professional will for sure, given
Right.
the kind of confidentiality of my work, but I'm wondering what else should I be having to kind of round things out?
So Crystal, are you working at home or are you in a retail space?
I have both. I have a physical office space where my employees provide services, and I work from home like 95% of the time.
Gotcha. So you have it, do you have the, under your homeowners, did you get insurance that way or no?
No. So looking like I probably need to add that under my homeowners, but I do have it, for the
Well,
physical space.
if you have it for the physical space, it should actually go with you home, back and forth.
Okay.
I would call your insurance company and confirm that you're covered when you're at home.
Okay.
Usually when you have a commercial liability policy, it follows you wherever you go. Where, you could be traveling anywhere. As long as you're doing business and you have that policy, you should be covered.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Miss Wanda, I realize I lied again.
Uh-oh.
I actually do have commercial general liability, so that, and it also
Good.
includes my products, professional
Good.
liability, general, and then fire liability as well.
Good. That's awesome. I'm glad you checked into that, because that, again, back to peace of mind and having the assurance that you have the correct insurance policies. You need to
Exactly.
make sure, and periodically, like once a year, you guys should be contacting your insurance carrier, letting them know if any things are changing, because a lot of times we forget to let them know. Maybe, you got some more money and you decided to get more products, and you need to make sure that you have enough. They need to know, oh, I need for my property, my business property, we decided to get all brand new computers. Let them know that you just had this influx of money and they need to probably add some to that insurance. Just in case, you want to make sure that you're not giving them outdated information.
Gotcha.
Well, thank you again. Last call for questions. This has been wonderful. And I'm just going to be selfish and say I learned so much today.
No,
I appreciate you going through it. And again, the assessment sounds like a wonderful starting place as well. So I'm hoping that everyone will take Wanda up on that offer, and just to make sure your bases are covered is peace of mind. And we like to be proactive instead of reactive and scrambling at the last moment. So I'm going to turn this back over to Juan. I know he has a couple of words he'd love to say. Thank you again, Wanda. It was great.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Well,
Appreciate it.
Well, the first thing is I never got to really welcome Wanda, in general, publicly, and Wanda is a person I really have gotten to appreciate a lot. Actually, my life insurance, she's my agent for life insurance, so I can tell you that much. She's terrific. She's been great, and we learn so much more every time that she comes to KNOWNpreneurs. It's the third time. I think you did 2 hours last time, right? And I think you needed like 3 hours, right? So I don't know. I don't know how you encapsulated this one for an hour, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
The other thing is, just to wrap it up, I just want to make sure that you'll try to fill out that survey at the end. We like your feedback. We have 2 presentations, so if you could just specify which presentation you're talking about when you provide feedback, that'll be great. And I think just another reminder, tomorrow at 5 o'clock at noon, we have KNOWNpreneur Social event, and And I think that that's pretty much it. I mean, the other event that we have is a fashion event, May 6th, but you'll know more about that. And then the graduation. But I think with that, we're okay to go. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Anyone want to buy artwork from Kim Weston, please? You know how to contact me. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.